As the migrant crisis shatters even more records, top members of the Biden administration are en route to Mexico as we speak for high-stakes talks. Good morning. I'm Mike Emanuel in for Bill Hemmer. Good morning, Molly.
Good morning, and I am Molly Lyon. I'm in for Dana Perino. This is America's Newsroom. Mike, it is wonderful to be with you. Hope you had a wonderful Christmas, and we're looking forward to a new year.
I hope Santa was good to your kids and to you as well.
That's what matters, right? Santa pulled it off. Once again, props to Santa. Well, it was also a record Christmas at the border. More than 35,000 migrants crossed illegally into our country over the four-day holiday weekend, and now a new caravan is heading our way. But in just a few hours, Secretaries Blinken and Mayorkas will meet with Mexico's president. Still, critics don't think that will change anything.
I have zero confidence in anything that Blinken does. Everything that he negotiates is actually not in the best interest of the United States. The first thing he's got to do is say, hey, we're going to shut down this border. Anybody that comes in the United States, we're going to send them back to your country. So good luck with 700,000 immigrants, per month coming into your country.
Sheriff Mark Donnells from Cochise County, Arizona, will be joining us in just a couple of moments. But first, we'll start with William Lajeunesse. He is live in Los Angeles. William.
Well, Molly, the irony is we're asking Mexico to control its border when we can't control our own. But Mexico has helped before, and it worked for a while. So the White House wants several things from President Lopez Obrador. Number one, resume deportation buses and flights from its northern border with the U.S. to Central America. Tens of thousands of migrants currently camp along the fence or live in shelters in places like Tijuana and Matamoros. Mexico ended its deportation flights a few months ago when it ran out of money. Also, resume policing of its railroads, known as the Beast. Rail is the cheapest and quickest way for migrants to come north. We also want them to increase immigration checkpoints and finally to limit or deny permisos or visas that allow migrants to transit Mexico legally. Here's some video of a visa center outside of Tapachula where Haitians and other migrants revolted months ago after being denied those visas. It's also where the latest caravan began on Christmas Eve. Some 8,000 to 10,000 are now marching north, hoping to prevent Mexico's effort to break it apart. President Obrador said Friday he is open to talks, but in return, he wants the U.S. to lift sanctions against Cuba and Venezuela and invest more in Central America.
We will boost as much as we can to help maintain an orderly flow. Recently, there was an abnormal surge.
So Mexico has come to the table after the U.S. closed two rail lines that cost Mexican shippers about $100 million a day, and it also hurt Mexican farmers dependent on U.S. grain for their livestock. Meantime, a bipartisan group of senators will meet virtually today to hammer out an immigration bill that makes it harder for migrants to enter the U.S. and easier to deport them. The best case, Molly, Mexico cracks down, the Border Patrol regroups, Congress acts, and illegal immigration falls. That's the best case scenario.
William, did you just solve everything for along the border crisis? We shall see.
Sentence.
Yes. We shall see what comes out of those meetings and if there's any progress made. Thank you, William Lajeunesse, for your reporting. Mike?
Molly, more on this now with Sheriff Mark Donnells from Cochise County, Arizona. Sheriff, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
I'd like to start with some comments from Biden administration officials insisting the border is safe and closed.
I want to be very clear. Our borders are not open.
The border is secure.
The president has done more to secure the border and to deal with this issue of immigration than anybody else.
It is my testimony that the border is secure, and we are working every day, day and night, to increase its security.
What's the reality, Sheriff?
Well, Mike, let me just say that. Those are false narratives. That's political theater at its worst. I say that. You talk to any Border Patrol agent on this border, they'll tell you if they could speak to the media, they could speak to the public, they tell you that's not true. Number two is you look at the non-political statistic, you look at your videos that come across here. What we've done is we've set aside border security, national security for immigration flow, and that's going on every day. And we have not prioritized this. I say we, talking about U.S. Congress and the White House, as they worry about re-election, we're down here every day, as I'm working right now, to address this border.
Secretary Tony Blinken, Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, and White House Homeland Security Advisor Liz Sherwood Randall are due to meet with the Mexican president today. Do you think it's just a photo op, or do you think it's an attempt to come up with some serious solutions?
I don't think it's a serious solution because the president hasn't prioritized this and made this. You look at all his State of the Union, all his presentations, Mike, this has not been a priority. When he spoke on the border last year on the State of the Union, he spoke about fentanyl with an about 1 or 2 minute statement. Again, we got thousands dying in this country. You got the border wide open, and they say it. You talk to the migrants coming across the border, where they say, we're here because of your president. We're here because of President Biden, and that's why we keep coming. So until he changes that dialogue, that theme, and says this border secure, and quit relying on everybody else to secure it, he needs to take charge. He's our president. He's taken an oath to protect this country and the citizens and our borders.
We have some sound from a migrant who is making demands of the president. Let's play it.
The President of the United States must help us, as we are migrants. In reality, some of us only go to the U.S. for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and then return to our country. For this reason, we demand that Joe Biden help us.
Sheriff, you've been in law enforcement for 37 years or so. How bad are things right now?
They're really bad. The amount of tragedies we're seeing on this border, speaking with my fellow sheriffs, seeing what I see in my own county, you look at the numbers that we're seeing, the border crime numbers, the migrant deaths, there's not a win in any category here. The only win is politics being played out in Washington, D.C., and I don't even consider that a win for us here on the border of this country. So it's not a good thing, Mike. We got to get a handle on this border. We got to do what's right for this country, for the Americans that we serve.
Sheriff, there's plenty of finger pointing here in Washington. Republicans suggesting the president has the tools to secure the border. Democrats insisting Congress needs to do more. What's your sense of it?
Well, the president can do more. And number one is to make this a priority, enforce the rule of law, and have reasonable consequences behind that. The rule of law is very simply, we could do it today. If the president chose to do it today, he could shut down this border. And let me just say this, the law states if you come across the border illegally, you're automatically detained and expelled from the country. We're not doing that. We set that aside. This is all about catch and release. So as long as the president is okay with having an open border philosophy, this is by design, Mike. They're going to keep coming. We got the green light on. So it's frustrating to see what we're seeing on this border and the tragedies for the migrants too, and act like it's not real to this country. That's sad.
Sheriff Mark Daniels, thank you so much for your time and the reality check from the border.
Thank you, Mike. Have a good day.
Iran proxies escalate hostilities against international shipping in the Red Sea. This latest attack came yesterday. Israeli air defense forces shooting down a hostile drone that they say was fired by Yemen's Houthi rebels. Grady Trimble is from Fox Business. He is live in Washington, untangling this really an escalating situation for us. Grady, to you.
It is, Molly. After pausing operations in the Red Sea, major shipping companies are starting to resume them, but they still face the threat of attacks from Houthi rebels as they do that. French shipping company CMA is the latest to announce it'll gradually increase the number of ships going through the Red Sea following Maersk. But just yesterday, Houthi militants claimed responsibility for yet another attack on a container ship. This brings the total number of attacks on international vessels to 21, and it comes after Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced Operation Prosperity Guardian to protect commercial ships moving through the region. On Tuesday, the U.S. Navy shot down 3 Houthi-fired Iranian-provided missiles using anti-ship ballistic missiles, but Republicans say President Biden is not doing enough.
Every time you hear the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, come to the mic and say our number one goal is non-escalation or de-escalation, Tehran hears that as opportunity, that the United States is not going to hit back in a way that hurts us, and that's why you're seeing these attacks continue.
Republicans like Congressman Mike Waltz and others say it is time for the U.S. to hit back, whether that's in the form of a cyber attack, an attack on infrastructure, or some other means. They say it's necessary in order to protect not just those ships, but also U.S. service members. Molly?
Grady Trimble, thank you very much. Mike?
Molly, meanwhile, the Israeli military expanding its ground operation to the area between Gaza City and Khan Yunis. This comes as the IDF chief of staff says the war with Hamas would go on for many months. He told reporters, quote, "There are no shortcuts in dismantling a terrorist organization, but with the group's roots so deep in Gaza, exterminating it entirely is no easy task." Congressman Mike Waltz, who sits on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, says in order to eradicate terrorism in Gaza, you need to cut off the head of the snake.
Israel is just going to be mowing the grass in Gaza. It's going to grow back. Terrorism is going to come back as long as Iran is flush with cash. So the biggest thing the administration could do to help Israel is do a 180, reverse course on its Iran policy, go back to maximum pressure, and dry up their coffers that are fueling terrorism across the region.
Well, diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Iran are collapsing. Iran is now tripling its production of near weapons-grade uranium. This will likely raise tensions further as Iran-backed militias continue to attack American and Israeli forces in the region.
Joe Biden stated during the campaign he never met with any of these people who sent his family money, and that he had a wall between the government and his family's shady business schemes.
Republicans in Congress promise that they will keep following the facts as they step up the investigation into Hunter Biden's overseas businesses and possible links to President Biden. So what's next? Jason Chaffetz on that in the next hour. Plus more fallout over anti-Semitism at many coming anti-ship ballistic missiles in combat for the first time. Welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom. I'm Molly Line.
Hello, Molly, and I'm Mike Emanuel. Bill and Dana are off. A senior defense official telling Fox News the move marks a significant escalation in the already tense region. The U.S. shooting down the drones and missiles fired by the Iran-backed Houthis. The retaliation comes after 3 U.S. service members were injured in a separate Iran proxy strike. President Biden now facing growing pressure to do more to defend American troops.
We're fighting the Houthis. We beat the Germans and the Japanese. We should be able to beat the Houthis. Secretary Austin and the Biden administration's failing our troops in the field. I admire him. He's a patriot, but he's not doing a good job protecting the soldiers. Without Iran, there are no Houthis. The Houthis are completely backed by Iran.
Meantime, forces in Israel are expanding their ground operation in Gaza. Trey Yingst is live in Tel Aviv with the latest on these escalations. Trey, to you.
Hey, Molly, good morning. Threats from Iran and its proxies are increasing amid concerns about the possibility of a broader regional conflict. Yesterday alone, we understand that 12 attack drones, 3 anti-ship ballistic missiles, and 2 cruise missiles were actually shot down by the American Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group. That attack was launched by Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen and lasted for around 10 hours. It comes as an American service member remains in critical condition following a separate Iran-backed drone attack against the Erbil air base that drew an American response against Kataib Hezbollah. Zooming in on the situation here on the ground, Israeli Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi announced Tuesday the IDF is expanding operations in central and southern Gaza while forces continue to go after Hamas leadership. The IDF says 3 additional soldiers were killed overnight, bringing the total to 164 since the invasion began, as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a new warning to Hamas.
We say to the Hamas terrorists, we see you and we will reach you. We are continuing the war and are intensifying the fighting in the southern Gaza Strip and other places.
Israel's northern front remains active as well. More than 20 rockets have been fired into northern Israel today from the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. Molly.
Trey, you've been there for quite a few holiday seasons. This one's very different from seasons past. And here the Christians just wrapped up their Christmas celebrations and we're heading into a new year. What are we expecting in the next couple of weeks ahead there on the ground, not just as part of this fight, but politically as we turn the corner into a new year?
Yeah, Molly, it's a great question. The Israeli government is under immense pressure right now, especially from the families of those 129 people still being held inside Gaza. So internally, there is a lot of difficult conversation that has to take place in the coming weeks about what the future of this operation looks like. But when you zoom out, there is a real concern among the Israeli population about the possibility of what's happening inside Gaza unraveling to a broader war. And there's an understanding that the threats from the north are very serious. And if a broad-scale conflict erupts with the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah, there would be many casualties throughout Israel. Molly.
Trey Yanks, the depth of your reporting, very much appreciated, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
Molly, let's bring in retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. General, welcome. So now the United States Navy is dealing with ballistic missile attacks from the Houthis, what a senior defense official is calling a significant escalation in the region. What is your reaction?
Yeah, Mike, look, first of all, thanks for having me today. Look, we're seeing a lot of rhetoric come out of the administration and a very limited response, both to the attacks in the Red Sea, an attack actually with the Houthis launching their missiles. And if you look at the whole region, if you back out a minute, the concern I've got is this has set an incredibly bad pattern. You know, all of us set patterns in our lives and how we do things. This administration set a pattern of talking a lot but not doing a lot. I don't care if it's Ukraine and Russia. I don't care if it's the Far East. I don't care if it's the Mideast. And I don't care if it's right now in the Red Sea. They're going to have to take some pretty strong responses, especially with what's happening with the Houthis now in Yemen. And if they don't take that, it just compounds itself. My experience being in the White House, when situations like this occur, if you don't respond aggressively and take disproportionate responses, then it's just going to build. And it's harder to put it back in the box. And right now, there's a lot of things out of the box. We're talking a big game, but we're not doing very much. And here's the concern I've got when you look at it. You're seeing a lot of allies kind of saying, we hear you, but we're really not listening to you. When we're looking at what's happening with the protection of the Red Sea, the Italians have gone their own way, the Spanish have gone their own way, the French have gone their own way. And now that even though some of the fleets, the major shipping fleets are putting ships back into the Red Sea, they're being very, very cautious. And the reason for that is you really don't trust us.
Florida Republican Congressman Mike Waltz, a combat veteran, is raising this concern. Let's play it.
I think it tells us and our adversaries and our allies loud and clear that deterrence is failing. We have put significant assets in the region, air defense assets, bombers, an additional aircraft carrier, and now have a multinational coalition of ships in the Red Sea, and yet the attacks keep continuing.
So how should the president and the Pentagon respond?
Well, what I mean, Mike, they need to do something disproportionate. Then we need to go way out of the box to bring it back into the box. And protecting the shipping through missile defense is wrong. They're going to have to go to the source of the problem. The source of the problem, one is in Yemen, and the second is Iran. When you look at what's happening with Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq right now, of attacking U.S. servicemen, what you're seeing the Houthis doing, the Houthis are not doing this on their own. They're being supplied by the Iranians. The Iraq paramilitary force is being supplied by the Iranians. You look at Hamas, you look at Hezbollah, all backed by the Iranians. Those are hard choices. I know the risk involved. I know it's hard to do that. But if they don't take a response and they don't make a hard response, this is going to continue. And the trouble is going to spin way out of control, and just not in the region, but globally as well.
From the Wall Street Journal editorial board, Biden endangers U.S. troops. Quote, Mr. Biden is afraid, we use that word advisedly, of being involved in a larger conflict, which might not be popular in an election year, but that anxiety is now interfering with his core obligation to defend U.S. forces. Is the president too worried about war with Iran?
Yeah, it's a pattern. And he set the pattern. It's risk avoidance. And you have to be willing to accept risk. You know, when you're inside the White House, those decisions come at you really fast and really hard. And you have to understand escalation control. You have to understand risk. But you have to do it. Your job is to protect the nations, to protect America's troops abroad, and they're not doing it. And so he has now set a pattern. And your adversaries see this. Your adversaries are not Jeffersonian Democrats. They're despots. They're authoritarian leaders. They're dictators, they're terrorists, and you must respond accordingly. The American people expect that, and our nation has to respond hard to bring this thing back under control. Right now, he's not doing it, and I think it's actually almost too late.
Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg with some sobering advice, analysis. Thank you for your time and your analysis today, sir.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Despite the escalating tensions here at home and in Israel, President Biden is taking a break this week. He is taking the first family on vacation in St. Croix. That is where Lucas Tomlinson is. Of course, somebody's got to do the hard work out there. Lucas, lovely backdrop to you.
Well, Molly, as his Secretary of State heads to Mexico today, President Biden and his family are coming down here to St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Many Republicans would like to see the president go to the southern border first, where he hasn't been since January. The president ignored a question about the border while he was boarding Air Force One a short time ago.
Here's the dirty little secret. They could fix this tomorrow if they went back to Trump policies, but they won't do it. We're going to change the law to give them tools to deal with this. Will they use it? I don't think so. No matter what we do, no matter how we write the law, they want it this way.
When it comes to the economy, Americans are not optimistic things will get better, according to a recent Fox News poll. Only about 2 in 10 Americans think it will improve, a far cry from December of 2020. And 44% think the economy will get worse. And 86% of those surveyed are extremely or very worried about inflation. They know when prices go up, they rarely go back down, Molly. The prices from 40-year high inflation 2 summers ago feel locked in. Despite these polls, the White House remains optimistic.
We're glad to see that Americans are feeling more confident about the economy. And as you know, I think a year ago or just 6 months ago, there was always this talk about recession. And that is certainly not where we're heading.
And then there's this latest battle in the Red Sea, as you mentioned off the top. For the second time in history, Molly, a U.S. Navy Super Hornet like this from the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower scored an air-to-air kill, shooting down some of those 12 drones launched from Iran's proxy fighters in Yemen. And for the first time in history, an American warship, the USS Laboon, shot down 3 incoming anti-ship ballistic missiles. Now, the price tag for those SM-6 interceptor missiles fired from Laboon, about $5 million a pop. That's a far cry from about the $2,000 drones, very crude, that are being launched from Iran's proxy forces in Yemen, the Houthis. Molly?
Well, Lucas, that is a great way to end your reporting. Great points there on all accounts. Thank you so much for it. Happy New Year.
People are angry about the asylum and migrant. I've never seen New Yorkers as angry as they are now about a particular topic that they have all rallied behind.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams, as the migrant crisis turns New York into another border city too, and he's calling out President Biden for failing to contain the surge. Plus,
Vice President Harris criticized for posting a Christmas greeting picture in front of a gas stove, an appliance on the administration's no-no list. Does this
highest court to remove the former president from the ballot last week? A deadly blizzard and ice storm is snarling post-Christmas travel plans for millions across the central U.S. Colorado getting buried in snow. Major highways are back open today after dangerous conditions briefly closed them yesterday. Meteorologist Adam Klotz with a live look at the forecast. Hello, Adam.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, that system is still on the move, maybe losing a little bit of steam, but a lot more folks are still ultimately going to see snow before all is said and done. Now, winds at times were up to 60, 70 miles an hour. It's a little bit calmer out there now, but there's still some spots where snow is falling, and this entire system is going to continue to move. More folks are ultimately going to see snow. This is our future in-house forecast model, and what you're seeing is all that snow kind of slowly dragging itself across Illinois, ultimately across portions of southern Indiana, even getting as far south as into places like Kentucky. So areas where you maybe don't see quite as much snow, you're finally getting some of that snow. This is the kind of the path that system is going to take. And as I said, areas like Indianapolis down towards Louisville, of course, getting back towards St. Louis, more snow on the way for all of those folks as that system makes its move. Now, otherwise, millions and millions and millions of folks here today are dealing with kind of a raw, soggy type of day across the mid-Atlantic up into New England as you're looking from D.C., Philadelphia, New York. Rain currently coming down, and this is going to kind of linger here for several days as we run through it. Now, because of that rain lingering here, not just today, but through tomorrow, there's at least some risk of flooding as a result. You're going to see just on the low end there of possible flood risks. But if you're kind of stuck in this right now, that rain is going to be here for a little while. Mike, back over to you.
Adam, I can confirm it is damp and chilly here in the D.C. swamp.
Yes,
Thanks
it is.
very much.
You got it.
Molly?
Critics turning up the heat on Vice President Harris over this Christmas tweet taken in her kitchen, seemingly next to a gas stove. Many say it's just another instance of do as I say, not as I do, particularly after the administration was considering, remember this, the ban on gas-powered appliances. Rich Zeoli is the host of The Rich Zeoli Show, and he joins us now to chat about this. Happy New Year to you. I have to say, they look adorable in these pictures. They look like a happy color, but is the happy couple? But is there a little, sprinkling of hypocrisy here?
Yeah, just a little bit, Molly, right? Don't you love how in this particular picture at Thanksgiving, the gas stove was featured prominently in their shot? This one now, it's like, Doug, guard the gas stove, Doug, block it so no one sees our hypocrisy on full display.
Yeah. Well, but at the same time, I look at this and I'm like, they must, they cleaned it. They're proud of it. They love the stove. This must be like the most picturesque spot in their house. They keep going back here.
So, oh yeah. Well, this is where she makes all her word salads, Molly. I don't know if you know that or not, but that's like literally right there on the stove. No, I mean, you're right. It's hypocrisy, right? They want to ban gas stoves for everybody. It's the gas stove for me, not for thee kind of approach. But it shows you the hypocrisy of the left. They don't really think gas stoves are a problem, right? They want to ban them because it's something that they can virtue signal and be woke about, and because the extreme climate left really wants them banned. But every chef knows it's the best way to cook. They know it's the best way to cook, Molly. That's why they were cooking on a gas stove for Christmas. Although they did not say Jesus Christ at all, and they wished everybody a Merry Christmas. So, there's that, but they certainly were all about the gas stove. And I'm sure all the people who went to COP28 this year have gas stoves on their yachts or their private jets. They're probably powered by propane, but still, it's the same concept, right? Yes. They are the world's biggest hypocrites and telling us what to do all the time.
So just real quick before, and I am going to let this go and get to our next topic, but are they trolling? They did it at Thanksgiving. They got smashed and ripped, and now they're taking another picture in front of the stove. Okay, just check it. All right.
It's trolling. It's trolling, or it's just complete political tone deafness, Molly, which is a bigger point, right? Kamala Harris is even more unpopular than Joe Biden. I really, truly believe they would dump Joe Biden in a heartbeat if they had a strong number two that could just replace him. But she's worse. She doesn't have good political instincts, and she's not well-liked, and this is the problem. I actually think it's political tone deafness more than anything else.
All right, I got to get to this one. California to fine stores that don't have gender-neutral sections in toy stores. I'm mystified because I have little kids, so I go to toy stores. There's dolls, there's Legos, there's dragons, there's stuffed animals. And I don't recall seeing signs that say boys only, girls only. So your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, listen, I have 3 kids, Molly, 9, 7, and 3. And I can tell you, they all know exactly what toys they want. And it's not about gender. They just know what they want. Right? They weren't asking Santa for gender-neutral toys. It's just another way to bust the chops of the stores. Now the stores have to create this section that nobody asked for, and it's California. I mean, if there's a demand for gender-neutral toys, which I'm sure there is, because it's California, they're already satisfying that element. It's just another way for the government to tell private companies what to do, and they have a free speech right to advertise how they want to advertise and direct their consumers accordingly. But every toy now is made for both boys and girls. I mean, there's Legos for girls. I got my daughters, Santa did, Lego princesses for Christmas, Molly.
Yeah.
Like, enough already with this nonsense.
Yeah, I've got a 2-year-old that's mega into like the race cars and the airplanes, but when the daughter got the nail kit, he got his nails painted. You better believe it. He looks fabulous. The final thing though, I mean, how do you enforce this? From the Paw Patrol to the Toy Patrol? What do they go around, and running a small business nowadays, $500 at a toy store? Mm-hmm. To find people, your thoughts on the enforcement angle.
Yeah, Law and Order gender neutral toy division, Molly. They'll come in, dun dun, and they'll look around, say, I don't know, this toy should really be in the girls section or the boys section. And by the way, aren't we acknowledging that there are 2 genders by doing gender neutral? If you allow boy and you allow girl toys, aren't we all really saying that there are only 2, and then we're going to pretend for all the others in this area? So we'll send in undercover cops. I think that's what we need to do. Maybe SWAT teams, Molly, SWAT teams.
Well, I
the
like
left's
your
always
theme
talking
music
about having
idea.
Less involvement.
Yeah.
Less involvement with law enforcement, right? They can just come in there and just raid them. I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rich Zeoli. Happy New Year to you. Thanks for joining us.
Happy New Year, Molly. Thank you.
Mike?
Molly, sanctuary cities across the U.S. scrambling to house an overwhelming number of migrants. How taxpayers in Chicago are paying the price. Plus, senior Biden officials will head to Mexico to attempt to get a handle on the border crisis. But some say it's too little too late, as a record-breaking caravan of migrants now heads for the U.S.
This meeting is really just a mere, trying to create the pretense that they're doing something about this, because they're starting to get a lot of bad press and a lot of political pressure to do something about it.
Hi, I'll have the avocado toast minus the avocado.
So the city is not getting the federal support it desperately needs, and he had some choice words for President Biden. CB Cotton is live from New York City with more. Good morning, CB.
Good morning, Mike. The mayor's office is pointing a finger squarely at the White House, saying the Biden administration is not providing the necessary financial assistance to the seemingly unending wave of migrants flooding New York City. Mayor Eric Adams' office said that another 188 migrants arrived Tuesday night to the Port Authority bus terminal after their flight from El Paso, Texas, to New York's JFK Airport was diverted to Philadelphia due to inclement weather. These new arrivals come as the city tries to keep up resources for the more than 68,000 migrants still in their care. A spokesperson for the mayor said as temperatures drop, they've had a surge at the city's intake center, saying, quote, "We have seen 7,200 new arrivals come through our intake system over the last 2 weeks, arriving through various means of transportation. Last week, 14 rogue buses from the state of Texas arrived in a single night, the highest number recorded by the arrival center. And last night, in another inhumane act of treating human beings like political pawns." Now, we've reached out to Texas Governor Greg Abbott's office for a response. Meanwhile, Mayor Adams says he keeps asking the White House for more help, but can't get it. Listen.
We're the economic engine of this country and state. I don't believe any of these cities should be going through this. I don't have the answer, and I think that's the answer that we need to turn towards Washington. People are angry about the asylum and migrant. I've never seen New Yorkers as angry as they are now.
Last month, Adams announced budget cuts as the city deals with the financial fallout of approximately 4,000 migrants arriving weekly. The mayor is also blaming Congress, saying that the city will continue to do its best while the federal government remains paralyzed. Mike, back to you.
CB Cotton live in New York City. CB, many thanks. Molly?
Illinois is also struggling to house an influx of migrants. More were bused to Chicago's suburbs over the weekend. Officials now turning to local hotels for shelters. Fox Business's Kelly Saberi is live outside one of those shelters in Chicago. Kelly, to you.
Hi, Molly. The state has made about 230 hotel rooms available here in Chicago for these migrants as more arrive daily by train, plane, and bus. The Illinois governor's office says funding for the hotel rooms will come from an additional $160 million that was set aside in the 2024 state budget to deal with the migrant crisis. Our Bill Malugin caught up with some migrants in Arizona last week who were headed all over the country, including to here in Chicago.
¿De dónde son?
Ecuador.
¿Todos de Ecuador? ¿Y por qué están aquí? ¿Quieren trabajar?
Porque tenemos ganas de trabajar. Todos queremos trabajar. Está muy peligroso Ecuador.
Tenemos inseguridad en todos los sentidos. No hay control en el país.
¿Y a dónde vas en los Estados Unidos?
Pensilvania.
Pennsylvania.
Nueva York.
New York.
Chicago.
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 Secretary of State Blinken will be meeting with the Mexican president this afternoon, along with Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas, to talk about this crisis. As many as 10,000 migrants were arrested at the southern border per day this month. Nearly 15,000 migrants are currently being housed in the city's 27 shelters. To date, the governor's office says they've helped 2,000 people leave the shelters by connecting them to friends and family. We are in the Fulton Market neighborhood of Chicago right now, where migrants are being housed in commercial buildings. The Fulton Market Association tells us that the mayor's office is doing this illegally because these buildings are not zoned for residential housing. The mayor's office also says that they've taken in about 30,000 migrants from Texas, and they say that they're being targeted because they're a sanctuary city. Molly?
Yeah, these housing challenges happening all across the nation, and some of these big cities getting hit particularly hard. Kelly Saberi, thank you so much for the reporting. Mike?
Molly, it all comes as Secretary of State Antony Blinken and DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas are en route to Mexico City to tackle the national security threat seeping from the southern border. 4 migrants on the terror watch list were arrested in just the last 2 months. Homeland Security reporter for the Washington Examiner Anna Giartelli joins me now. Anna, welcome.
Hey, Mike.
So Secretaries Blinken and Mayorkas are on the way to Mexico City with the border crisis on fire. The State Department saying about the visit, quote, Secretary Blinken will discuss unprecedented irregular migration in the Western Hemisphere and identify ways Mexico and the United States will address border security challenges, including actions to enable the reopening of key ports of entry across our shared border. Should we expect more than a discussion and an actual deal of some sorts on the crisis at the border?
You know, I don't think so. I mean, the Biden administration still isn't even calling this a crisis. It's just unprecedented, right? You know, for the last 3 years, we've seen 150,000 to 300,000 people encountered at the southern border each month. Normally, we'd see 30 to 50,000. I think despite what's going on in the last month with multiple caravans worth of migrants coming across the border every single day, the Biden administration is still taking very, minimal action, sending officials down, but not saying what its hopes even are. For Mexico to take action, it would probably take a little bit of twisting of the arm, such as President Trump had done with taxing their imports.
Heading into an election year, President Biden's in deep trouble on this issue. From the Fox poll, he has 33% approval of his performance on border security, 63% disapprove. Does that put pressure on the American team to produce results?
Yeah, I think it puts significant pressure. I think people are tired of seeing what's going on at the border. Like I said, more people encountered at the border under President Biden in 3 years than under President Obama's 8 years, in addition to President Trump's 4 years. I mean, that's unprecedented. And I think that people want to see people across the country where immigrants are resettling. It's not fair to anybody. 3 million cases in the immigration court backlogs. People are going to wait years to get decisions on their asylum cases, if they even seek asylum. Some just stay. So I think people want to actually see results or a change in administration.
Then there's the pressure of another caravan, expected to be about 6,000 people or so, heading toward our southern border at a time when the border facilities are already full, and we're hearing complaints from cities as far away as New York City and Chicago. Another caravan of 6,000 or so people, what kind of pressure does that add to the mix?
Well, 6,000 really is pennies compared to what we're seeing every day. Last week, we were seeing days where border officials were encountering 14,000 people in a single day. Another 6,000 isn't actually the end of the world compared to how many, we're seeing multiple caravans come across daily. I don't think, and in 3 years, not much has changed with the Biden administration's approach. They'll put forth initiatives and say that they're having results, but then those results will fade after a couple of weeks or months. And then they'll point to those again and say, well, it worked. But, just look at the numbers every month. Nothing has changed. And I don't know if they're, Republicans want to know, is it incompetence or is it just indifference to addressing the situation?
Anna Giartelli from the Washington Examiner, thanks very much for your time today.
Thanks, Greg.
Molly?
All right, it has been a very busy year, and news takes no holiday. From global wars to nationwide strikes and a historic shakeup on Capitol Hill. Up next, a look back at 2023. Plus, Republicans in the House getting ready to go full steam ahead with the Biden impeachment inquiry next year. They say they have a heap of new evidence, and they want to follow the facts where they lead.
So the American people know something stinks here, and that's going to be a problem for Joe Biden moving forward. Not only are his policies a disaster, but the American people think he's a crook.